Hi. A lot of people have been beginning to talk about nuclear war. Well, that talk has gone on for some times, but it's really stepping up now. Tucker Carlson just released a video on Twitter, X, about we are heading towards nuclear war. And I mean, he got a lot of connections, so it's very troublesome that he says that. And no one's talking. I mean, the debate in Denmark and other places are, well, in Denmark is like, it's on a manipulated, false preterms, false assumptions about what's going on. And one thing is that we are heading towards nuclear war. The other thing is that the forces that wants nuclear war to many people will be very surprising. It's my view that the global elite, the parasites, which run this world, and is one of the big problems that we humans cannot handle parasites. It's devastating actually, because this is the Antichrist in the world. I think and they're pulling people to be to express their Antichrist side. The lack of love, human, the lack of love for fellow man. We see it in governance. We see in how we treat elderly, how pedagogics expressed, and how we create taboos. When you go for democracy to fascism, you have taboos in the society. You have something that the media attack you for trying to talk about and call everything conspiracy theories that doesn't suit the globalist narrative. But darkness defines light, so many people are waking up to that also. So it's also an education. So I believe everything will turn out as it should be. I mean, everything is a consequence of the choices we take. But I think that I hope for the awakening, and I hope that the love from within can be chosen by people to be a factor that they create in life with. Also socially, not only personally. We have the inequality in the societies, the caste society we live in, which the high caste facilitates the globalist, and the low caste facilitates the health of the population and the people's power. And all this is going to change. It's going to change one day. I hope that. This is not socialism in a way. It's not. It's something about living together, and everyone is thriving. But what is it about this global war? Because it's about, I think all this which is happening now is about tricking and pressing Russia to push the button, to destroy the West. And I think how you can see that is the West and the NATO alliance is weak military. Douglas MacGregor talks about Colonel Douglas MacGregor, who's one of the honourable military personnel who speaks common sense, tells about how cold Germany was a strong German army, but today the Poles could overrun the country in a week. They only have ammunition for some days, and the same with the French. So we have a NATO that is military weak, have old military tactics. When you have an air carrier group, this is the Navy strategy, to have an air carrier group with supporting destroyers, frigates, and submarines and tankers. They are an easy target for hypersonic missiles. And the same with the warfare in Ukraine. We think that there is a battle going on between Ukrainians and the Russian army. Well, there is, but not in the way that the reality is. 400,000 Ukrainians have died and 15,000 Russians. The Russians see a target by the satellites, they put a mark, and then they give the coordinates to their missiles or their cannons, and then they just press and gun with them. Absolute terror in the country. The half of the country is fled, and the rest is terrorized by these Nazis. Because Ukraine is the perfect storm for going against Russia. And that's why they chose Ukraine to make this circus, this narration, which is false. They know there is Russian minorities in the country. So CIA in 2014 go in and remove a duly and lawfully elected government and put in thugs, extremists, who are willing to humiliate and kill the minorities, Russian minorities, and then force Russia in to defend them. Well, Russia had knew this day was coming. Since Yeltsin days, where the globalist bankers tried to take control of Russia and corrupt the whole country, then Putin stopped that. He protected Russia, and he's doing that today. He's doing that very, very but how do you say, in a correct way. He takes only 40,000 men and goes into to Ukraine in 2022, this February date, and he asks three things. We won't have Ukraine to be member of NATO and put further pressure on Russia. And we will be gone with the Nazis. We don't want them, and we want protection for the Russian minorities. And that's very, very, very reasonable claims. The Nazi past in Ukraine, well, maybe Ukraine is that place where Nazis in the version of Second World War thrived best after the war. They haven't had a showdown with the Nazis in Ukraine like in all other countries. And then there's the NATO expansion. Russia was promised not to expand NATO to the east. And then they allowed the unification of Eastern and Western Germany. But NATO lied. Why should we lie? Because it's not we, it's the parasites. And the parasites have projects. They have projects they can't tell their people. So they have to make games. They have to make effects. They have to make effects they can operate from. They have to create fear, and they have to create they have to create problems that they can bring the solution to. And together with a murderous, lying mainstream media, which is much worse than the Goebbels in the Second World War, they do horrible things. So we have the weak NATO. What can they do military? They can only press the button, because Russia has prepared for this. Scott Ritter explains how during the Georgian War that the Georgians were trained by the US Marines, and they understood how they had to upgrade the whole war machine. And they did that. So they're ready for 2.5 year boots on ground war. And what are we? Do you know where to go if a bomb comes? Do you know what to do? Have you stored food? Have you prepared? Have you heard anything from the authorities? Have anyone been drafted? Have armies prepared? We are walking around drinking cafe latte. We are not ready for this. And that's the purpose. I believe that's on purpose. Because they don't want an educated, conscious population. They want them gone. They want the society gone. They want all these well-educated, semi-egoistic, naive, maybe, Tesla driving. I mean, annoying for them, privileged people gone. So they want Putin to nuke them. And when they're nuked, they can build their great reset, their smart cities, like they're doing in Maui, with them directed energy weapons. Well, the Secretary of Defense talked about DU weapons. I've seen films about the DUs. And Lahaina is a smart city project. And we are moving into 12 minutes cities, ghettos. They're doing these projects, those Nazis, because they're Nazis. They kill people. And the rest, they want to create their dystopian society. So Putin is in trouble. They want me to kill them. That's his problem. We have all these idiots putting pressure on Ukraine and putting pressure on Russia. And at the same time, you have the globalists sitting with their red wine or what they will do and say, come on, kill them. You know, you have to kill them someday. He's doing that. Same time, they are building gain of function laboratories in Ukraine with Slavic bioweapon, according to Robert Kennedy Jr. and the Russians. So we have this bioweapon that people have been taking naively with cognitive dissonance when you try to give them the facts. Like 4.2% of the batches creates 70% of all the death and side effects and making people very, very, very sick. All this killing, all this dying business. When are we going to create with our hearts? It's heading to be much worse, apparently. There is the CIA front company, Deagle, who had, which made its predictions or forecasts. And about Denmark, which is 5.6 million people, we are going to be in 2025 only 3,800,000 people. And the rest is dead. In the United States, it's much worse. 300 million people reduced to 68 or something million people. How are societies going to look like after all this destruction? We have a problem, psychological, how socially to deal with sociopaths, psychopaths. We try to urge father to behave properly. When we behave so nice and properly, then father will be nice. And it's not going to work that way. When you have to deal with psychopaths, you have to make structure. You have to remove them from power. And then their energy is they're very enthusiastic and I want to do and all this, and they want power and they want solution, all this kind of things. A lot of them are leaders in business and they function, but they need structure, the structure of behaving properly. And the people who behave properly are not sitting in top of society. They are not, they are low, they can't survive. A business model, the satanic, globalist, parasitic economic business model make a certain kind of people thrive. And if there are conflicts with bad people, the globalist corrupt system protects them. They say all this is going to fall and all this is just a show to inform the people who follow nature more than they follow God. And what do I mean about that? We are incarnated in the nature, and there are the laws of nature. And in the laws of nature, the one who wins the battle, the fights, the one who dominates, the alpha male, he's the one who has to take care of the flock. Well, that's nature. But in human nature, it gets worse. It gets more dark because people who have nature in them, who let the one who dominates, the strongest dominate them, they continue to expect to be taken care of by them. But that's a problem. That doesn't happen. The parasites then use the energy of the flock to serve their ego, so they eat eat and shit at a higher level than all other people. Then we have divinity. Divinity is what's within us. It's the consciousness that flows. It's God. It's what we are part of, the higher being. And the higher being expresses itself in art, aesthetic processes. But we learn to listen and express what's within us. And that is truth and love. And that's very, very core principle for living in a social, and that's what social society, and that's what the big masters have told us, Jesus and also Muhammad and all these kind of Buddha and all these people. But the problem is that the dark forces takes over Islam, and the dark forces, the Romans, what it was, takes over the Bible, and the old Bible was evil, and Jesus was another being. And now I'm going to speak about something, now I'm going down a sidetrack, but just something to think about. There is something wrong, problematic with awakened people. The awakened woman is made a witch and burned at the stake. And the awakened man, what about him? Well, that's Lucifer, the light bringer. You see, Lucifer is not evil. Lucifer is bringer of light. He made a rebellion against God. But what God? The Old Testament God, the evil God. When men gets with integrity, filled with God within and love within, what do? They reject evil. They say, be gone with you, we want the good world. Well, that's Lucifer. And there, in the old text, Gnostics and all this secret book of John and all this, there is a guy on YouTube called Mark. Really look him up. He examines this, and he realized that Jesus and Lucifer is the same being. It's love. It's the revolt against evil. So we have to reject darkness. We have to reject being manipulated. And it has to, I think we live in a consciousness universe. So this to be awakened, this to state who you are, what you do, not to make a revolution and fight. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about going from being a sheep slave in consciousness, don't want to be conscious about these things, to be conscious. And if you reject this, the mirror is going to be more powerful. Because what's within is also outside of you. As what is above you, higher consciousness, should also be below, be in you. And when that is in you, then what's outside of you will be different, I believe. What if this is a simulation, as Elon Musk says? Then suddenly it's very important in what you are doing and where you are and what your attitude is. Because what's within gets reflected around you. If you're running away, doing sports and games and lying to yourself and all this, it will come after you. God will come after you until you be godly. And don't buy into that. All these things about women have to wear scarf. That was during the Anunnaki times, I've heard. And women has to be like this. And men are not allowed to be homosexuals and all this, messing around with other people's choices, interfering in other people's life, how they live. It's just to be divide and conquer. And then dark forces are trying to, in this compassion about people's right to choose what to be, they're twisting it. Oh, then we should also accept the pedophiles, the molesters of children. Oh, then we should allow small children to have sex change operations. That doesn't work. It does not create love and consciousness. It creates pain and confusion, because a child can choose when it's grown up, but to choose to play with energies, play with sexes and feminine and masculine sides during one's upbringing, that's another thing. That's evolution. But go in and change the body with hormones, that's evil. That's the plan, isn't it? To get us to lose ourselves. Because the body we have is the setup we need to meet higher consciousness, to be able to live the love within us, to contain it. And when we have something we can't stand, then we can't ever. How can we live with love when we can't contain it and give it compassion? And because of our karmas, that we have to deal with. We have to deal with all of our shit. All of us have to deal with our shit. So, they're trying to kill us. And they want us by all sorts of things. They're killing us with all sorts of things in food and medicine, and all this is Antichrist. And all these people are all around lying to themselves, being pulling in to express Antichrist. It's painful. And the painful is necessary to create love. And the pain will be stronger unless you face righteousness and love. All the best.